The bodhicitta spontaneously wells up in people, and they just know that their job is to love and serve, which I relate to pre-Buddhist shamanic things. I mean, I've been in sweat lodges with like fully traditional Lakota Sioux talking about their experiences in Vision Quest, where they would have this vision of all of humanity, and they knew it was there, and they would see the people suffering, okay, and they could see the whole world, and they had this calling. They knew it was their job to care, et cetera, et cetera. I think this is, you know, something that is by no means distinct to Buddhism, but in Buddhism is sort of codified as the bodhisattva ideal. There's the arising of Mahayana Buddhism historically about 2,000 years ago, so about 500 years after the Buddha. The Mahayana literature has two themes. There's this sort of like, okay, karuna is as important as prajna. In other words, the compassion, meaning broadly service, love, you know, et cetera, what you put out into the world, is now philosophically on an equal footing with the liberating wisdom. So that's one thing that was characteristic of Mahayana literature. And the other thing that was characteristic of Mahayana literature is everything's empty. There's no one to save. That's the Prajnaparamita, you know, that's Mahayana text. The Mahayana critique of early Buddhism. In other words, they say, well, there's two things wrong with early Buddhism. One is that although the practice of service may have been there, it was not philosophically emphasized, so early Buddhism sounds like a spiritual selfish, hence the term Hinayana, our small vehicle. And then the other thing they say that was wrong with early Buddhism is that they thought that what you get to know self by teasing apart the skandhas, right? But you have to realize that the skandhas themselves are empty, as is everything. So it's not just that there's no thing called a self, there's no thing. And that's the Shunyavada, or teachings about emptiness. So those two co-arise. That's like, we got to save the world that's really not there. And sort of getting those two clearly, that's the bodhicitta. After the night comes the dawn. It's a natural cycle. After the impersonal comes the personal. The return of the human, the same, but changed for the better. Focus on positive. If possible, directly from the nothingness and the energy. Let the self be remade, resurrected. Kinder, more fulfilled. Rejoicing in service at all levels. Bodhicitta, bodhicittotpada, the spontaneous upwelling of the bodhisattva aspiration.